Hey guys, Quaros here, and unfortunately, this is not going to be one of the fun, hopefully informative gameplay videos that you've come to expect from me. Instead, we have to talk about the state of the Chaos Zero Nightmare subreddit, which is in a pretty sorry situation right now, and I think it's important to talk about. So, that being said, let's jump right into it. Now, this started a little bit before the post I've got on screen right now, so I'll just give a little bit of backstory. For a while, people in the global player base have been talking about some of the issues that they're having in common and not so in common with other regions' player bases, specifically the South Korean player base. And a lot of it has been a game of telephone, poorly sourced forum posts, and other just rumblings. And eventually, a couple days ago, this Reddit user, Tide Degenerate, decided that he was going to put together like a big summary of what he saw as the Korean community controversies with the game Chaos Zero Nightmare. And he said this was unbiased. Obviously, it's not unbiased. He actually acknowledges that it's not unbiased. But it's a very, very long, in depth post that this person clearly put a lot of effort into. But really, the big thing that the global community latched onto, and it was something that they had already kind of latched onto, was this portion, the NTR slash poor treatment of the player character. If you don't know, NTR is like a, cuck thing in certain audiovisual media. And it's when the protagonist's love interest is stolen away by an antagonistic male force. In this case, our buddy Owen. And the Korean community has, at least a subset of the Korean community, I should say, has been having issues with the way that Owen has interacted with some of the female characters in Chaos Zero Nightmare. There are instances where he holds a woman's hand, where he carries a woman unconscious, and even where he gets shot by a woman and then fawned over by a medical team. Really, really risque stuff, I know. And I'm not really here to go in depth about that. What I really want to talk about is this post, the ensuing drama, and why it's gotten as bad as it did. So this post itself, had a relatively tame reaction to it within the comments section. It had people often disagreeing, but usually doing so in a fairly polite way and well-reasoned way. But then, of course, comments and then the kind of posts that get uprated are very different. So we started seeing more posts like this and like this, which are directly referencing other previous Korean gacha community scandals, like the finger pinch emoji, which is something that the Korean anti-feminist community claims is a symbol used to make fun of their tiny peepees. It's a whole thing. There are other places that go way more into depth about that, but just know that this is intentionally sort of provoking that subset of the Korean community and, bringing up this kind of thing and making fun of their small peepees. And this resulted in a bit of backlash. And I did not look into the source of this backlash very thoroughly. It was 3, maybe 4, I think, accounts over the course of the weekend that for several hours were posting some really, really heinous stuff. Just the most racist, sexist, misogynist, homophobic, transphobic, anti-Semitic, any kind of hatred you could think of, like memes and, messages trying to relate it to this culture war and this sort of, difference in opinion between the global community and the Korean community for Chaos Zero Nightmare. And frankly, I don't know if the people posting those awful images and stuff were from the Korean community or if they were, people from 4chan who were just trying to have a laugh and provoke a response and do a little false flagging. Maybe it was genuine and people are just shitty. I don't know. But the point was, those posts were there. They were real. I'm not going to show them on screen. If you really, really want to see awful memes for some reason, then you can look at like Removed It or whatever other archival website would have that information. You'll just have to take my word for it that it was there and it was bad and it was up for way too long. And the fact that it was staying up for way too long did not go unnoticed. We've had several posts asking if we have any mods in the subreddit. Um, you know, or that the mods need to put their shit together and take action. And we do actually have mods in r/Chaos Zero Nightmare. We have two, in fact. One is I Love Big Dom Small Sub, which that certainly is a name, with a grand total of 1 post karma and 0 comment karma. Redditor since 5 months ago. I have no idea when this account joined the moderation team, but obviously it was less than 5 months ago. And I don't expect this to be a real account that's doing any enforcement action. It hasn't ever posted anything. Who knows what the heck this even is. The other one is Oracle Nemesis, which is a real account. This has been a Redditor for 7 years. That's real post karma. That's real comment karma. If I go and I click on Oracle Nemesis, I don't see anything in submitted. I don't see anything in the comments or in the overview. And that's not necessarily a sign of something wrong. I use old Reddit, and there are issues with old Reddit and displaying, certain kinds of posts and stuff. But I do think there is some other stuff to be aware of, like the fact that this person, Oracle Nemesis, moderates 3 other subreddits. Let's take a look, shall we? First up is r/Redditry, and if we go there, you'll see there is a single post advertising the Redditry Lounge. Kind of weird. The second subreddit that Oracle Nemesis moderates, other than Chaos Zero Nightmare, is r/A:/T5_708IK, which advertises the r/Queens of League 2 Lounge. If you're sensing a pattern here, you'd be right. Because the third non-Chaos Zero Nightmare subreddit that Oracle Nemesis mods is r/A:/T5_621VBJ, which is advertising the r/this other lounge. And, once is whatever, twice is happenstance, 3 times you're not fooling anyone. I'm not saying that this is necessarily a bot or whatever, but if I was a bot, that's probably the kind of stuff that I'd be, posting and creating. It's very bot-esque in just sort of the random symbols and numbers and letters with those subreddit names, the fact that they're all formatted the exact same way other than r/Redditry. It stinks. And so I don't expect to see any major moderation action out of that person. The posts that I talked about earlier did in fact get taken down eventually, so something happened, whether that was contacting an admin or whether Oracle Nemesis got off their ass and finally did something, or who knows, maybe it was that other mod with 0 posts or comments. Either way, we have no way of knowing, because if you go to Chaos Zero Nightmare subreddit, you'll see that there is no announcement post over what happened. There are no mega threads. There have been no mega threads. There have been no comments by any of the moderation team in any posts. And so we don't know what's going on. And I know that other people have tried to become a moderator or take over moderation, and that hasn't been successful. And the reason that hasn't been successful is because the admins have said, oh, no, we have seen active moderation activity. So something is happening. We just don't know what. It's not transparent at all. And it's not going to get any better. And in fact, I think it's probably going to get quite a bit worse before it gets better, because earlier today, we got a broadcast from the director of Chaos Zero Nightmare. And this is an apology broadcast and post. Some of it is very, very legitimate, like service instability issues. The game on launch was pretty unstable. People's accounts were getting munched. People's payments were getting, taken, and then the paid for items were not being received. Some of the payment options weren't working at all. Things were not good at launch, and that did deserve addressing. However, some of this is directly addressing that Owen NTR drama from that Korean subset of the player base that I mentioned earlier. And some of this is relating to other stuff, like different writing staff leaving or being pushed out, rewrites happening, which, it's not good as a look for a game, and that is stuff that the Korean community had been talking about. But the preview for this upcoming story renewal, where they're going to rewrite the entirety of the game's story that is out right now, it's going to be rebuilt around the captain, the sole protagonist within this universe. And then later on in the Q&A, when they clarify the character shipping issue, they plan to address interpersonal relationships between non-protagonist characters, primarily through external content, such as side stories and 4-panel webtoons, and then further clarify that within the game's main story, interactions between non-protagonist characters will be minimized. I think that sucks, personally. I think that for a game whose writing is already, frankly, fairly mediocre, not as horrific as some doomsayers might claim, but certainly nothing to play the game for, putting that kind of limitation where characters can't have organic conversations with the people around them without the main character being present to act as like a go-between, or, be there so that people are allowed to talk and be in the same room. Those kinds of self-imposed rules is only going to harm your story if the writing team, as it currently stands, is not showing a great amount of skill and talent. How is this going to make it any better? It's not. But that could be the whole topic of another video. I want to move on to what that has done with the subreddit. Now, we've got posts highly upvoted, lots of comments, even more comments than the original explanation of the KR Controversies post, pointing out some of those things that I just pointed out in that blog post. Then we've got people complaining, that they're fearing that this is going to turn into soulless harem garbage. Then we've got people counter-complaining that, why are we complaining about the story and why are we complaining about inter-community fighting? Can't we go back to guides and shitposting now? And, back and forth and back and forth. There's complaints about the complaints. Who knows how many meta layers of complaining we are going to get? But my guess is probably at least a few more because, like I said, there is close to zero moderation on this subreddit. There is nothing that is stopping or relegating drama to its own specific corners or taking down repetitive complaint posts or just making useful discussion mega threads to talk about the actually very, very fun and cool game, Chaos Zero Nightmare. And I want to see more stuff that isn't just drama and shit posting and inter-community fighting. I want to see cool builds and cool decks that people are managing to bring out of Zero System now that more and more of the community is able to get into that part of the game and save more save data from their decks. There's cool stuff happening in the game, and it's so much harder to talk about it because we don't have proper moderation. And to be clear, I don't necessarily know what the solution to this problem is, but I do think it is important that we acknowledge that we have a subreddit that is the main subreddit for the game, and it has problems, and unless those problems get fixed, it's going to be harder and harder to talk about the game that we love. That's really all I wanted to say here. Thank you all for listening to me rant about this non-gameplay topic for as long as I have. If you liked it, or if you've liked any of my previous gameplay or game mechanic related videos, please leave a like and subscribe. If you didn't like it, tell me to shut up and get back to the gameplay and the mechanics discussion, because that is honestly what I hope to do. So yeah, see you in the next one where we are going to talk about something that isn't silly gacha community drama. This is Koros, signing out.